He told me we were too broke for art classes, while secretly paying for a luxury condo, private lessons, and a new life with another woman who let my son call her mama behind my back. My 5-year-old son Micah told me that while licking strawberry yogurt off his fingers, sitting cross-legged on our old couch like it was just another Thursday afternoon. That's the moment I knew something was deeply wrong with my marriage. Let me back up because you probably need some context before this spirals. My name is Carmen. I'm 34, I live in Portland, and until recently, I thought my biggest problem was figuring out how to get Micah into art classes without completely tanking our grocery budget. I used to be a preschool teacher before I left work to take care of Micah full-time. That was a mutual decision between me and my husband, Jared, who works freelance in IT. He said, "You're amazing with kids. Why waste that on someone else's?" It made sense back then. We've been married 6 years. I thought we had a stable life. Not glamorous, but real. A small 2-bedroom house, 1 working car, grocery lists scribbled on the back of envelopes. Friday night pancakes with Micah in mismatched pajamas. The kind of life you look at and think, this is enough. But over the past year, something shifted. It started with little things. Jared coming home later and later from client meetings. Micah mentioning a woman named Savannah. Daddy's friend, she brings snacks and has shiny shoes. I laughed the first time he said it. Thought maybe she was a client or a coworker. But the mentions didn't stop. Savannah showed me how to do the octopus dance. Savannah has a phone that makes puppy faces. And then, Savannah tucks me in at the other house. I actually stopped stirring my coffee when he said that. What other house, baby? The one with the big window and the river. Savannah said I can draw on the balcony if I don't drop my crayons. I froze. We don't live near any river, and we definitely don't have a balcony. When I asked Jared about it later that night, he brushed it off. Said Savannah was a friend who sometimes helped out when he had Micah during my overnight visits to my mom, who's recovering from hip surgery. She's just good with kids, he said. Micah's making stuff up. But it kept happening. Micah mentioned a piano. The one Savannah plays before I sleep. He talked about a fish tank with purple lights and a room with unicorn lights in a secret drawer where he keeps toys that don't fit at our house. I didn't say anything to Jared for a few more weeks. I wanted to believe it was harmless, that maybe a friend had a nice apartment and Micah stayed over once or twice during emergency childcare situations. I've been gone more nights lately, helping my mom with medication and meals since her surgery. And I picked up part-time work cleaning rooms at a hotel near the airport to help pay for Micah's art classes. Classes Jared said we couldn't afford unless I contributed. It's brutal work. I leave home around 4 p.m., come back near midnight. I sleep 4 hours, get Micah ready for school, and then help mom with physical therapy exercises before going home to nap. Jared said it was just a phase, that we had to tighten up financially. So imagine how I felt when Micah casually told me he had already taken art classes. Months ago, with Savannah. We were sorting through his crayon box. He pulled out a drawing, a really beautiful one for a 5-year-old, of 3 people standing under a rainbow. A man, a woman, and a little boy. They were holding hands. "That's you and Daddy and me?" I asked, forcing a smile. He shook his head. "No, that's me and Daddy and Savannah. From the art class. She said I should draw what makes me happy." I didn't say anything. I just stared at the paper. The figures were smiling. Savannah had long yellow hair and a pink dress. I wasn't in the picture. That night I asked Jared again, more directly this time. I asked if he'd taken Micah to art classes before. His jaw tightened. "Just a couple drop-ins," he said. I didn't think it mattered. "Did you go with Savannah?" He shrugged. "She likes art. It was convenient." "Convenient," I repeated, stunned. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "If you're going to make a big deal out of this, maybe you should reconsider how often you leave." That's when I realized he was flipping the blame on me. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of Micah's white noise machine down the hall, wondering how much of my life was a lie. Wondering who Savannah really was. Wondering what else Jared had been hiding. The next morning, I tried logging into our joint bank account. The one Jared set up years ago and always insisted on managing because I'm better with numbers. My password didn't work. I reset it, answered a few security questions, and finally got in. My stomach dropped. For the past year, every first of the month, Jared had been transferring $600 to another account I'd never seen. Then came the purchases. Home decor, electronics, expensive restaurants, even 2 charges from a luxury kids' clothing store. All while I was scrubbing toilets in hotel rooms and serving my mom microwaved soup with her pain meds. I stared at the screen for a long time, my hands shaking. That afternoon, I took Micah for ice cream after school. I tried to stay calm, cheerful. Tried to pretend nothing had changed. But then, right there in the booth, he told me the thing that finally snapped the last string holding me together. He said, "Mommy, Savannah said I could call her Mama if I wanted. She said I can have two mommies, like my friend Cooper." I dropped my spoon. Micah didn't notice. He was busy adding gummy bears to his sundae, and I was already planning my next move. I barely remember the drive home from that ice cream shop. Micah sat in the back seat humming some silly tune, legs swinging, still sticky from the melted sundae. I kept one hand on the wheel and the other gripped tight around my phone like it could anchor me to something real. Two mommies. She said I could call her Mama. My son didn't say it with malice. He wasn't trying to hurt me, but it pierced through me in a way I wasn't prepared for. Not after everything I'd already given up. Not after the late nights cleaning rooms, the meals skipped to save money. The hours I spent worrying about bills while Jared smiled across the table and told me he had it under control. I didn't cry when I got home. I didn't scream. I didn't even ask Jared about it that night. He was already gone by the time we walked in. Supposedly at a tech networking event? Sure, networking. I tucked Micah into bed, kissed his forehead, and sat in the dark outside his room listening to his soft breathing. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to ask Jared anything. I was going to find out the truth on my own. The next morning, I called in sick to the hotel. First time I'd done that in 4 months. I dropped Micah at school, then drove straight to our bank. When I walked in and asked the teller for a printout of all transactions over the past year, she raised her eyebrows. "I'm a joint account holder," I said. "I just need some clarity." She asked for my ID, made a quick call to her manager, and 10 minutes later handed me a stack of printed statements. I sat in my car in the parking lot and read through them one by one. Page after page, transfer after transfer. Every first of the month, $600, sometimes more, into an account labeled Personal Reserve. Jared's name only. Restaurant charges, $180 at a steakhouse we'd never go to. Spa services, furniture store deliveries to an address I didn't recognize. Children's boutique purchases, art supply store receipts, $200 here, $150 there. I recognized none of it. None of it was for me. None of it was for Micah. None of it was for our actual family. Then came the part that nearly made me throw up. A security deposit for an apartment complex downtown. Waterview Lofts. Lease signed under Jared's name, paid in full 6 months ago. Unit 2B. A quick Google search told me everything I needed to know. Luxury building, river views, on-site gym, private concierge, starting at $3,200 a month. I sat in my car for a long time, silent, staring. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call him and demand answers, but I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath, pulled out my phone, and took photos of every single document. Then I drove to Waterview Lofts. I told the front desk I was looking to rent a unit, pretended I was relocating from Seattle. The woman smiled and handed me a brochure, said they only had one-bedroom units left right now, except Unit 2B, which was currently occupied by a couple with a child. I thanked her and walked away before I started shaking. That night, I waited until Jared fell asleep on the couch, phone in hand. I took it from his lap, quietly opened his photo gallery and scrolled. Nothing obvious. No selfies with her. No saved images of Savannah. But then I checked the recently deleted folder. That's where I found it. A photo of Jared and Micah standing in front of a huge floor-to-ceiling window with the river behind them. Jared smiling, Micah holding a stuffed dinosaur. Savannah's hand could be seen resting on Jared's shoulder, her bright red manicure unmistakable. I sent the photo to myself, returned the phone exactly where it was, and went to bed without saying a word. The next few days were a blur. I still went to work. Still packed Micah's lunch. Still smiled when the teacher handed me his drawings at pickup. I even laughed at a joke the janitor at the hotel told me while I was mopping the elevator. But inside, something was burning. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just lies. This was erasure. Savannah wasn't trying to steal my husband. She was trying to replace me entirely. I started noticing it more with Micah. The way he hesitated before calling me Mommy. The way he'd ask if I could cook pasta, the way Savannah does it. The way he'd mention how Savannah never gets mad when I forget my shoes. It broke me in small pieces every time. Quiet cuts I couldn't stop bleeding from. So I did the only thing I could think of. I started collecting. Photos, financial statements, lease records, screenshots from Jared's work calendar showing off-site client meetings, on days the credit card showed charges for amusement parks and boutique toy stores. I printed everything, labeled it, stored it in a manila folder under my dresser. I created a digital backup on a Google Drive Jared didn't know about. I gave copies to my best friend who lives 2 blocks away, just in case. I also called a lawyer. A free consultation at first, just to get my bearings. Her name was Elena, and when I showed her the documents, she didn't even blink. "You're not overreacting," she said. "You're underreacting. You've got a solid case here, especially if you want full custody." I didn't know what to say. I'd walked in thinking I just needed advice. But now I had a plan. That weekend, Jared was supposed to take Micah for a boys' afternoon while I worked. He left around 11 a.m. I watched from the window as he buckled Micah into the back seat and drove off. 2 hours later, I got a text from Savannah. "Yes." She texted me, "Hi, Carmen. I know this is awkward, but I wanted to clear the air. Jared told me you guys are separating and just living together temporarily for Micah's sake. I'd never want to hurt another mom. I hope we can be civil moving forward." I stared at the message, reread it 5 times. My hands went cold. Jared told her we were separating. Told her we were just living together temporarily. Told her I was… What? A placeholder? I didn't respond. Not then. Instead, I took a screenshot and forwarded it to my lawyer. Because this just became war. After Savannah's message, something inside me snapped. Not in an explosive, throwing plates across the room kind of way. Number, it was quieter than that. Sharper, like the click of a lock turning in my head. I'd been humiliated, lied to, gaslit for over a year. And now, the woman my husband was sneaking around with was messaging me like we were co-parents in some twisted family arrangement? Number, absolutely not. I didn't reply to her message. Instead, I sat in silence, staring at that little speech bubble like it was a live grenade. Because that text changed everything. It confirmed what I'd suspected but hadn't yet proven. Jared wasn't just cheating. He was replacing me. Over the next few days, I stopped playing the role of the confused wife. I stopped asking questions I already knew he'd lie about. I became what he never expected. Calm, collected, and very, very dangerous. I pretended everything was fine. I made his coffee the way he liked it. I packed Micah's snacks for his weekend adventures with Daddy. I laughed at his dry jokes, the ones I used to find charming before I learned he was charming someone else every Tuesday and Thursday evening. And while I smiled, I prepared. Every break I had between shifts, I spent documenting. I pulled Jared's credit reports. I printed records of the transfers he made to the personal reserve account. I compiled screenshots of Savannah's Instagram posts, especially the ones showing Micah's drawings proudly stuck to her fridge. He was building a second family and using my son as the foundation. My lawyer, Elena, was impressed with how quickly I was moving. She helped me open a separate bank account, advised me to reroute my direct deposit there and stash tip money somewhere Jared wouldn't find it. She said, "The key here is staying ahead of him. He's already moved on emotionally. Now you need to protect yourself legally." So I did. I adjusted my hotel schedule to work early morning shifts, ones that let me pick Micah up from school, make dinner, do bedtime, just like I used to. I wasn't going to let Savannah keep playing house while I cleaned bathrooms for minimum wage. Micah noticed. One night, while brushing his teeth, he turned to me and said, "I like it when you're home more, Mommy. Savannah makes good pancakes, but you give the best hugs." I nearly cried right there on the bathroom floor. But the next part is where it gets worse, where the twist I never saw coming hit me like a train. It happened last Thursday. I was organizing receipts and documents in the bedroom while Micah played with Legos in the living room. Jared had said he was working late again. Some urgent website update for a client in San Diego. That's what he always says when he disappears on Thursdays. But then my phone buzzed. A text from one of the housekeepers at the hotel. She was covering my shift that evening and had a question about a long-stay guest. She sent me a photo of the guest ledger. And right there, third from the top, was Jared's name. Room 412. Checked in under a corporate discount code. Listed for a single night stay. My heart sank. I didn't believe it at first. I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe he booked it for a friend. Maybe it was someone else with the same name. So I called her. "It's definitely him," she said. "I saw him in the hallway like an hour ago." I thanked her and hung up. And then I did something I didn't even know I had the courage for. I got in the car and drove to the hotel. I parked in the far lot and walked in through the side employee entrance. I knew the layout, knew the elevator code, knew that room 412 was at the end of the hallway with the river view, our city's version of a luxury night out. I stood in front of the door for what felt like forever. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might faint. Then I knocked. There was silence at first, then footsteps. Slow, hesitant. When the door cracked open, Jared's face appeared. He froze. He didn't even try to look surprised. He just blinked at me like he couldn't figure out which version of me I was. "The working wife?" I said. "Or the stupid one?" He opened his mouth to say something, but before he could, Savannah's voice called out from inside the room. "Babe, did you order extra towels?" She walked into view a second later, wearing a hotel robe, holding a glass of wine. And when she saw me, her face didn't change. Not panic, not guilt, just annoyance. Like I'd interrupted their evening. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply held up my phone and took a picture. Neither of them stopped me. Then I turned and walked out. The hallway spun around me, but I kept walking, one foot in front of the other, all the way to my car. I drove home on autopilot. The house was dark when I got in. I peeked into Micah's room. He'd fallen asleep on the couch with a coloring book still open on his lap. I kissed his forehead, carried him to bed, and sat beside him until my hands stopped shaking. The next morning, I texted Jared 3 words: "Do not come home." He replied an hour later with, "We need to talk, please." But I was already packing. I took only the essentials: clothes for me and Micah, his favorite toys, all the documents I'd gathered, and the photo from the hotel. By noon, we were at my friend's guest house across town, and that's when the real twist happened. Because while I was unpacking, my friend said, "Hey, weird question. Is this your Jared?" She showed me her phone. It was a listing from a real estate app. Jared's name as owner. Waterview Lofts, Unit 2B. Status, for sale. Listed 2 days ago. Asking price well above what we paid for our house. He wasn't just playing house with Savannah. He was liquidating it. He was preparing to disappear. The moment I saw Jared's name listed on that real estate app, selling the condo he'd been hiding Savannah in, I knew I wasn't dealing with a man afraid of getting caught. I was dealing with a man ready to vanish. He wasn't just betraying me emotionally or lying about our finances. He was laying the groundwork to walk away clean. No strings. No guilt. No trace. And he was planning to do it before I even saw it coming. That's when something in me hardened. The heartbreak. The humiliation. The months of being made to feel like I was overreacting. They all condensed into one clear, cold decision. I'm not waiting to be discarded. I'm going to burn every bridge he's hiding under. But I had to move smart. Every move had to be clean, logical, undeniable. So first, I stopped using our joint account entirely. I transferred the last of my diner tips to my new bank account, rerouted my freelance payments, and even got Micah's after-school art studio to charge only my new card from now on. Then I scheduled a full meeting with my lawyer, Elena, and laid everything out. The hidden condo, the photo from the hotel, Savannah's text, and the new listing. Her eyes narrowed at the screen, then she said something I'll never forget. "He's trying to sell it fast before you file. But if it was bought during your marriage using shared funds or diverted income, you can block the sale." I stared at her. "Even if the title's in his name?" She nodded. "Especially if he used money that should have gone toward your shared household. And Carmen, based on what you've shown me, I think you're entitled to far more than just the house." She helped me file an emergency petition with the court that same afternoon. We requested an immediate injunction to freeze the sale of the condo and secure temporary financial disclosures. Basically, it meant Jared couldn't make any major financial decisions, like selling a luxury condo behind my back, until things were sorted legally. When I left her office, I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was focused. Micah was still at school, so I drove straight to the condo building. Not to go inside. I didn't have a key. But just to stand there. To see it with new eyes. Tall, polished, cold, and full of lies. That night, I didn't say a word to Jared. He texted around 10 p.m. asking if he could come by to pick up some stuff. I told him no. I told him I'd drop anything essential at his office. He didn't argue. He knew something had shifted. Over the next week, I began the slow, deliberate process of taking my life back. I withdrew my name from every bill I didn't want to be tied to. I changed the emergency contacts at Micah's school. I gave a copy of the court order to the property management company handling the condo listing. They were shocked, but cooperative. They took it off the market within hours. Jared must have gotten the notification because that night he showed up at my friend's house unannounced. I was in the kitchen folding Micah's school shirt when I heard the knock. I opened the door just wide enough to see him. His face was pale, tight. "What did you do?" he asked. No greeting, no apology. "I stopped you," I said. "You don't get to sell off your second life and leave me with scraps." He laughed. This brittle, high-pitched thing. "It wasn't like that. You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I cut in. "You wanted to disappear before I found out. You wanted Micah to call someone else mom while I worked double shifts to keep the lights on." He opened his mouth, but I wasn't finished. "I have bank records. I have photos. I have proof that you funneled over $30,000 into that condo while telling me we couldn't afford art classes. He looked like he was about to say something. Deny, spin, deflect. But then, he crumbled. He leaned against the porch rail, hands in his hair, and whispered, I never wanted it to get this far. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then he added, Savannah's pregnant. The world tilted sideways. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself. He wasn't just planning to walk away. He was starting over completely. A fresh family, a new child. And what? I was supposed to keep Micah warm with school glue and custody agreements? You're unbelievable, I whispered. She didn't plan it. Neither did I. I didn't know how to tell you. Oh, so you were going to sell the condo and vanish into suburbia with a new baby? Leave me guessing? He didn't answer. I shut the door in his face. The next day, I updated my legal filing with the pregnancy news. My lawyer said it could strengthen my custody case, especially if I could show the emotional harm Jared caused to both me and Micah by splitting his time between two homes and creating confusion about who Micah's primary caregiver really was. But I wasn't done. The real twist came 3 days later, on a rainy Monday morning. I received an email from Jared's employer, the company where he'd been freelancing for the past year, the same company where Savannah worked. Apparently, someone from HR had found my legal petition among Jared's email threads. He'd forwarded it to Savannah for advice, and she, brilliantly, had replied from her company account. Big mistake. The email thread detailed Jared's financial complications, how he'd been keeping the condo off the books, and here's the kicker, how Savannah had helped him falsify work invoices to redirect money to the personal account he used to support the second home. I read the thread 3 times. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer. 2 hours later, she called and said, Carmen, this just became a criminal matter. I sat in my car in silence, heart pounding. Not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what this meant. Jared wasn't just a cheater. He was a thief. And Savannah? She wasn't just a mistress. She was his accomplice. I used to think closure came in the form of an apology, a tearful confession, regret, maybe even a promise to do better. But now I know closure is a courtroom document with your name on it and your head held high. The fallout from the email thread was fast and brutal. Within 48 hours of forwarding it to my lawyer, Jared's contract with his freelance employer was suspended. Savannah's name was quietly removed from the company's media page. I didn't even have to say a word to HR. They'd seen enough in the emails to launch their own internal investigation. My lawyer filed a formal complaint outlining Jared's financial misconduct and how he diverted joint marital funds into a private account, all while manipulating tax forms and fake invoices through Savannah. She said depending on how the company handled it, this could become a criminal fraud case. And just like that, the power shifted. He wasn't the one holding secrets anymore. I was. He must have known something was coming because he tried to get ahead of it. Sent me a long, rambling email begging for mediation. Not court. He said he was worried about Micah, didn't want him to see his parents at war. But this wasn't a war. It was a reckoning. At our custody hearing, Jared's lawyer tried to spin the narrative, painting me as the unstable mother who abandoned the home and refused to co-parent peacefully. But my folder of evidence said otherwise. So did the court documents from my emergency petition, the bank statements, and, most importantly, the email thread. When the judge asked Jared directly if he'd been maintaining a second residence during our marriage, he hesitated. And that hesitation? It cost him everything. I was granted primary physical custody of Micah, with Jared getting supervised visitation for now, pending the outcome of the financial investigation. The judge also froze his assets, including what was left in the condo account, and ordered him to pay temporary child support based on his last full year of income. He didn't look at me once during the ruling. Savannah wasn't there, probably busy scrubbing her LinkedIn page. The next few weeks were strangely quiet. No more texts from Jared. No surprise visits. He moved out of the condo, though the building management told me he was weeks behind on fees. Apparently, he'd been using up his last freelance checks trying to stay afloat. Micah adjusted faster than I expected. He asked fewer questions, slept more peacefully. One night, while brushing his teeth, he said, "It feels happier now." I nodded, kissed his cheek, and didn't cry until he was asleep. The last time I saw Jared in person was 2 weeks ago. I was picking Micah up from school when Jared showed up early. He waited by the fence, fidgeting with his watch, wearing the same wrinkled hoodie he'd worn to our first apartment years ago. For a second, he looked like the man I used to know. He asked if he could talk to me. Alone. I said no. He said, "I lost everything." I just looked at him and said, "No, Jared." You gave everything away. He nodded slowly. Then he asked, almost in a whisper, "Do you think he'll hate me when he's older?" I didn't answer, because that's not up to me. Now, I spend my days doing what I always wanted to do, being present. I found a position at a local art co-op, teaching classes part-time. Micah comes with me sometimes, sits in the corner with crayons and paper, drawing wild stories I could never imagine. Last week, he drew a picture of me. Just me. No Riverview condo. No mysterious second woman. Just me holding his hand. And this time, I was smiling. So no, I didn't get an apology. But I got my son. I got the truth. And I got the strength to walk through the fire and come out on the other side. Because when a man tries to replace you, burn your name out of your own story, the most powerful thing you can do is write the ending yourself. Trust your gut. Paper trails don't lie. And silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you're getting ready. If this story hit a nerve, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to take your power back the hard way? And if you want more real stories like this one, make sure to subscribe. You never know whose truth you'll hear next.